same-sex marriage. And the Premier of Tasmania has indicated that she will put same-sex marriage before the Tasmanian Parliament. To what extent, panel, do you think this has impacted or will impact the Australian political and social scene? I'll kick off with Mr. Patrick Bateman.
Well, on the question of the state push, I think it will have a real impact. I think it's quite likely that federal legislation in this area is going to be defeated. So at a political level, it will have a real impact that Tasmania, potentially South Australia, are going to push ahead with same-sex marriage. I think there's a real constitutional issue involved. I think there's an open question as to whether that legislation would be inconsistent with the 2004 Marriage Amendment Act. I think there's a potential argument to be made that it's not, and you could actually see state legislation survive in this area, and then potential for a patchwork nationwide set of laws emerging similar to the United States. I don't think that's necessarily a good outcome. I think it would be far preferable, whether you believe in same-sex marriage or not, to have a uniform set of laws. And I think that's a second-tier scenario, but I think it's quite a possibility.
What do you think, Patrick Langrell?
Well, I probably agree with most of what Patrick said. I think that is a grasp issue, rightly. With regards to the influence of Barack Obama's evolution on the issue of marriage, I don't think it was much of a surprise that Barack Obama believed that in the idea of same-sex marriage. He said his views were evolving for many years, but he constantly engaged in many recommendations for legalization of different sorts of unions and benefits that will lead eventually up to same-sex marriage. And it seems more of, I think, the timing-wise when he evolved was probably more of a political expediency itself. But I think Patrick is right here in nation that in Australia, at least, as opposed to the US, this issue is settled at a federal level, and that's the way it should be handled.
It just occurred to me that I didn't give the customary 5-minute spiel on where these lovely representatives have come from, what their background is, what they're passionate about. And I think we ought to start by getting a better understanding of Dr. David Van again. Would you like to give the background?
Thank you, Zach. I'm a GP called down on very short notice from Queensland because I happened to be able to get here today, and the person who was meant to be here couldn't get here today. So I'm delighted to be here. And as a GP, my main concern is with marriage as it relates to children, as it relates to the kids I look after. And Zach did say that we could give the skeleton case of where we think the heart of this debate lies. And I'm delighted to open up with that. Let me quote to you the former chairman of Australia's National Human Rights Committee. That's Frank Brennan, the prominent lawyer. He has this to say on marriage equality. Quote, "In the name of equality of adults, future children should not be deprived of the opportunity to be born of a man and a woman. Citizens need to consider not only the right of same-sex couples to equality, but even more so the rights of future children," end quote. Now that is the heart and soul of opposition to same-sex marriage. That it means same-sex parenting, and same-sex parenting means that future children must miss out on either a mother or a father. Because marriage is a compound right under Article 16 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, quote, "the right to marry and found a family," end quote. Therefore, same-sex marriage includes both the legal recognition of an exclusive relationship and the right to form a family by artificial reproduction, such as surrogacy. But any child created within that marriage would have no possibility of being raised by her mother and her father. Now, there are already tragic situations where a child cannot have both a mum and a dad, such as the death or the desertion of a parent. But that is not something we would wish upon a child. And it's not something that a government should inflict upon a child. There are already situations where broken families reform as a homosexual household, and nothing can or should be done about that. But what we must not allow is the situation which is inherent in any proposal for gay marriage, the situation where government facilitates the deliberate creation of motherless or fatherless families. Now, of course, at this point, everyone raises the scenario of an abusive mother and father. And they argue that it's better for a child to have two loving same-sex carers than a dysfunctional pair of biological parents. But neither option gives the child what she needs. We must reject both. Restraining parents who would inflict abuse, while also restraining governments who would inflict laws that normalise the motherless or fatherless child. So some matters are beyond the authority of any government to tamper with. Marriage is not a social invention to be cut to shape according to political fad. It is a social recognition of timeless natural reality, male-female offspring. The father of modern anthropology, Claude Lévi-Strauss, he called marriage, quote, a social institution with a biological foundation, end quote. He notes that throughout human history, the human family is, quote, based on a union of two individuals of opposite sexes who establish a household and bear and raise children, end quote. So all of our marriage customs and our marriage laws exist to reinforce this biological foundation, helping bind a man, a feral by nature male, to his mate, for the sake of social stability and for the sake of the child that they might create. Now, not all marriages do create children, but typically they do. And the institution exists for the typical case. If adult sexual relationships did not have the momentous consequence, typically, of creating a child who needs nurturing for many years, there would be no need to urge the binding contract of marriage on sexual partners. The old atheist philosopher, Bertrand Russell, understood this when he said, quote, "It is through children alone that sexual relations become of importance to society and worthy to be taken cognizance of by a legal institution," end quote. So self-evidently, same-sex relationships cannot create children. So society has no institutional interest in regulating such relationships. They are of great importance to the individuals involved and they demand neighbourly civility. But they do not meet nature's job description for marriage and family. So, back to Frank Brennan, who shows us the civil way forward on this debate. He says, quote, "I think we can ensure non-discrimination against same-sex couples, while at the same time maintaining a commitment to children of future generations being born of and reared by a father and a mother." This non-discrimination against same-sex couples is exactly what Federal Parliament achieved in 2008 when over 80 pieces of legislation were amended by a bipartisan majority. There is now no unjust discrimination against same-sex couples in Australia. What Frank Brennan calls commitment to children of future generations requires that we discriminate justly between two quite distinct social projects: the widespread public task of marriage and family and the private commitment of gay partnerships. Homosexual couples now enjoy practical equality with married couples in every way, short of marriage. The process must stop short of marriage because marriage is about something much deeper than civil equality. It is about a natural reality, male, female, young, which society did not create and which, for the sake of future children, we must not seek to destroy. Thank you.